Hey guys.
Hey
Hi.
everyone.
Welcome to Don't Friday. And today it was supposed to be an F
Don't
sound and it came
don't
out.
F word Friday.
Well, don't just put your own F in there. Maybe it's freak
But
out. Don't
be judicious with your F word.
yes, don't use a F, don't use a word that starts with F that is inappropriate, you know. Although don't, maybe don't do that either. So there you go. Anyways, no.
Freaky Friday. Just don't Friday.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
don't.
we get some great suggestions.
Yeah, just don't.
It's fine.
Okay,
It's
so
fine.
anyways, welcome. You know how this show works. Everybody that's here has been here before, I'm sure, but I'll explain it anyways. This is the show where we basically just talk about topics that you guys come up with, um, based on whatever's going on in your life that you're maybe stressed out over or having a hard time with searching for a little advice on, or maybe just want to talk to somebody about. We're here to basically, not be professionals. We're not psychiatrists or psychologists. There's a difference. Psychiatrists deal out medicine, and that's their whole gig. Psychologists work with you mentally to try to help you get over something,
Mhm.
purely mentally without medicine.
Mhm.
So that's the difference for you. We're neither. We are neither. But we're here to just basically try to be a friend, try to be someone you can talk to, and help you get over whatever is going on in your life. Help you to help remind you that you're an amazing person, and to encourage you. And because I think we all need that in our lives, here and there, whether it be from someone we know or sometimes a stranger. Maybe something we hear on the radio or someone we don't even know. Sometimes that can change our life, or that can just
Mhm.
move us, be the next thing that moves us in the right direction. um, so we just hope to help you in your life. As you support us, we hope to support you. um, so yeah, please just at any time post whatever your concerns are for the day, um, in the chat, whether they be problems maybe with your family, or maybe your dog won't listen to you. Yeah, whatever the issue is, friends, we all have relationship issues, I'm sure, to some degree. um,
Mhm.
and yeah. So
Yeah,
I think we have some from um
we do. We actually Haley Hepworth is here.
oh,
And we have
wonderful.
a question from her from
Two or
not
three.
not this last one because she missed on this last Wednesday, but the
Mm-hmm.
one prior to that. She got a question in, but we didn't have a chance to get to it. And I have it
Yes.
here if you want me to
Yeah,
read
please
it.
do, because I'm looking for what it is.
Okay. The question from Haley. Hi, Haley, and thank you for your
Hi.
question. Um, the question she had asked was, so I have a question. How can I fight my anxiety and grow self confidence? I'm
Ah.
constantly doubting myself, and my anxiety makes it even worse.
Mm.
And then she says, sorry, I feel like I always have a question. But you shouldn't be sorry for that because,
Yeah.
that's kind of what the show's all about.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, we're thankful that you're willing to share parts of your life with us so that we can share in your life and be a part of your life in that way. I think that's
Yes.
so cool. And
Yes.
so, and that you give us the chance to do that is really, really wonderful. And honestly, that are, you show a lot of self-confidence already just by making the question. I think
Mm,
it takes a lot of confidence to put yourself out there, to talk about your problems to strangers, or on a show where everybody's going to be hearing what you've said and talking about it. I think that takes a lot of courage. um,
mhm.
so I think that's awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
um,
Thank you for asking. And as Taiga Asaka has said, I was going to ask something like this, and that is so true. I think especially this type of question is one that
mm,
I would have asked many, 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 many times throughout my life, and still ask from time to time, because I think we all struggle with that. We may not ever quite get rid of it totally,
mhm,
because every once in a while self doubt can creep in, and lack of self confidence. Things happen in our lives, and
mhm,
just kind of knocks us off balance, and sometimes we're down in a pit and we need some help getting out. And I know I've said this on previous shows, but there are times when I was just listening and somebody asked a question that I really needed the answer to. And I was so glad that they had the guts to ask.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that way I could get the answer that I needed, even though I didn't have the courage to ask. And so just by asking, it boosts everybody here. So thank you so much, Haley.
Mhm.
But Ryan, did you want to start this one?
Well, you
Or do you-
seem like you're on a roll. You've got a solid state of thoughts going through. I figured I'd leave it up to you.
Okay. Well. So
Sounds
to continue on that string of thought, um, yeah, I mean, I think that's a challenge for everybody from time to time, and I think that depending on the season of life we're in, depending on what is happening, also, depending on our age. I know I struggled so hard with self-confidence.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, probably from the time that I was in 7th grade until I was about 26 years old. And I started to kind of see a, a breakthrough at that point when I was 26, and I started to get some different mentors and started to get some different information in my head. And I started to believe in myself a little bit more. But between then, I mean, there was a time in there when I was, when I got to be like a senior in high school and stuff like that, where it seemed like my confidence was really high because I was really kind of arrogant, you know.
Hmm.
But I can tell you, looking back on that, it was all just a front, you know, just trying to put a persona out there so people wouldn't see the fragile, scared, terrified actually person that I was. Because like I said, for years that was always going on deep down, and I could not ever overcome it. And then, I started reading some good books like Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz, and um, one that really helped was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I mean, these books are old. These are like 1930s, 1950s old,
Mhm.
and but just still very, very relevant, to help us understand people and help us understand the way we think. Another book that's really kind of a hard read, kind of a deep read, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This guy he was a prisoner in concentration camps in Nazi Germany, and he survived. And while he was there, he was a psychologist. He was actually a licensed psychologist. And it was there where he figured out his theory of logotherapy, which basically says people feel better about themselves. People can cure their psychological illness, so to speak, by having a purpose, by
Mm.
developing a purpose within them. So like a person who has no reason to live, he noticed this in the concentration camps, that the people who had no reason to live would generally tend to not live. And and the people who did have a reason, the people who kept holding on to that reason, whether it was family or whether it was, what they did outside of there before they were imprisoned, the people that were able to hold on to their purpose were able to cling to their lives that much more strongly. And he brought that back, and then he started using that type of stuff with his patients, and it really, really was effective. That what he needed to help these people do is figure out a purpose, some kind of reason to keep going. And then those little things, our anxiety levels can go down if we're focused on something other than ourselves, if we're focused on our goal, if we're focused on, whatever task we may feel we're assigned to do in this world. then all of those levels go down. Now we'll still have to fight self-doubt for sure, but it doesn't quite get to that level of depression and, the anxiety. Anxiety seems to be so common today. It's
Mhm.
absolutely incredible, like I mean, even very young kids are struggling with anxiety, and it breaks my heart because I remember being there. And um you hear people talk about how stressed out they are. And yeah, that I mean, the weight of the world can just be crushing at times, and the weight of the relationship struggles we have to deal with, and the weight of all of the schoolwork we may have to do, or the work we may have to do, and just all of this stuff can press down on us. But not all stress is bad. There are two kinds of stress, actually. There's distress, which is the bad kind of stress, and there's eustress, which we don't hear about very often. But that's a good kind of stress. That's the kind of stress that maybe we voluntarily put ourselves through in order to improve. Or maybe it's, us thinking about a better future, and that motivates us
Mm.
to get ahead, or to finish a project, or to do whatever. A good kind of stress is motivating, whereas a bad kind of stress is debilitating, and it just stops you. And I think there's a lot of distress going on out there. And in some cases, not all the time, but sometimes you can flip whether it's eustress or distress. Like you may be feeling something that's so stressful and it weighs you down. And maybe sometimes with some things, you can just flip your perspective on it, and you could be like, wait a second, I can use this.
Can you
I
give us an
can,
example?
like, okay, well, I'll give you one that's near and dear to me, and that's financial. There was a time when my finances were an absolute ruin, and, I was broke and had no job, and I had, one child already and another one on the way, and I had no income and no job, no, and basically no money. And it was very, very hard. And we were just scraping by and borrowing, and other people were helping, family members were helping us out. And, we're so thankful for the people that helped us, through that time. And I really let it get to me. I really let it bog me down and just stop me from doing anything. Until finally it got to the point where I was like, wait a second, this stress, this financial stress doesn't have to stop me. It can be a starter. I can use it to light a fire up under my keister and go and do something, you know? Like in that case, that was, I was like, oh my gosh, I just need to do something. And then from there, I started to do some stuff. And I had some friends that helped kind of pull me up out and say, and breathe encouragement in and say, you can do something. It's okay. Maybe, it won't be the same as what you did before. And by then I had tried like four or five different professions. And I was like, well, probably it won't be. It seems to be like, the course I'm taking. I try a new profession every couple of years. But you totally, at that point, I was like, oh, I'm going to take this stress and I'm going to turn it around. And rather than it being demotivating, I'm going to make it motivating. And I'm going to make it empower me to try and try again and try again and try again and continue to try and work and work. And it may not necessarily be the same in your situation, but anxiety, depending on the type of it is, I mean, a lot of times it's worry, and worry is just a vision of something bad that has not happened yet. When we worry about something, we're we are thinking and contemplating on something that has not happened, and it's negative. It's a negative thing that has not come to pass. And we can make it so real in our minds, even though it's not real. And it can be stressful, and it can just cause all these mental issues, even physical, biological issues. People get physically sick through
Mhm.
worry, and the thing has not even happened. And there was another great book. I'm like a book person right now, apparently.
I guess so, right?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, nothing wrong with
So
it.
the book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This guy, he wrote a book on psychology, but he was a plastic surgeon. And what he found out was, like, people, when they had plastic surgery, they might have had some kind of problem with their face. They didn't like the way they looked. And then they went in to him, and he changed their appearance. And he was expecting, that's going to help them feel better. But what he found out was their mentality did not change. Even though their physical appearance was now different, the thing that they were really upset about, it was fixed. But in their mind, they still felt ugly, because that was their habitual train of thought, was that they felt like they were ugly, and they had programmed themselves to feel like they were ugly, over and over and over again for years. Every time they looked in the mirror, they saw this face that they were dissatisfied with. And then it gets fixed. But because of that years of programming, it didn't fix them. And so he started to figure out, oh, so much of this is in our minds. We can, if it can be programmed in the negative, then it can be also programmed in the positive. And so he came to this conclusion that our mind does not know the difference between something that's real and something that's vividly imagined. Like, it is not in real life, but if we vividly imagine it and get all of our senses into the deal, our brain treats it like a real memory. And the more we feed ourselves the memories of good things, like, they might not have happened yet, but we just continue to feed ourselves something that we want, a desired outcome, and we experience it in our minds, and we get all of ourselves into it. The more often we do that in the positive direction, the more we can reprogram our minds to move in that direction, and our anxiety will start to dissolve, and our poor self-esteem will begin to dissolve, and all of these things start to just fade away over time. Now, it takes time, and it takes repetition and creating a habit, because these people, they had years of creating this habit in the negative. So it takes them some time moving the other direction to fix it, but it can be done. So those are just some random hatchet thoughts, and I guess about 4 different books that you could possibly read. So, man, but I hope that's helpful, and I remember when I started to realize the, benefits of how powerful our minds are, and that tells me something. If you're people who struggle with anxiety, they have extremely powerful minds.
That's true.
And the power of your mind is working against you. when you're struggling with anxiety, and you can change that. And it was proven to me in a very real way when I quit smoking cigarettes, because there was a program that I used to quit smoking cigarettes. I had been a smoker for like 12 years, and then I finally quit. And there were one of the main techniques I did to quit was this self hypnosis and feeding myself subconscious images, basically a lot of deep breathing and putting myself into like a deep trance like state. And then while in that state, you can communicate more fully with your subconscious mind. And it had me feed pictures of a non smoking me. And I did that every day, every day, every day for like 2 months. It was this exercise where I'd sit for like 20 minutes or something, 15, 20 minutes. And I would deep breathe and get really relaxed, and then start feeding myself these images of a non smoker. And after 2 weeks, I felt like I had never smoked, even though I had smoked for 12 years prior. But after 2 weeks of this exercise, I had felt like I never smoked before. So it really, really woke me up to the power of our minds, and how if our minds are taking us in a certain direction, with discipline and creating new habits, we can change that direction and move in the other way. And I really hope that, some of that helps out. And I thank you again for the question, because I think that's something that's a big, big issue that a lot of people deal with. And Ryan probably has some much more wise and and relatable things to say here. So
No,
I'm going to turn it over.
I was very glad that you went first. You had a lot of really awesome things to say. I was totally into it. So yeah. And I was like, wow, there's really not much more I could say. I think you really said a lot, which was really, really good. I guess the one thing I would say is this. I mean, this is something Joe already talked about before, but anxiety, I'm just going to put this through again. Anxiety is all about worry. And it's a lot about bad habits. You've got this habit to do something, you've got a habit to think negatively about the situation that's about to happen, or about how other people might think of you if whatever happens. That's generally what anxiety is. It's this bad habit you got to get rid of. And habits can be gotten rid of. One thing, I guess the main thing that I have to say is, how do we take all of this stuff that Joe just said and put it through an active course? What do we do to move ourselves from one side to the other? What kind of things can we do? And so to that, I would say this: when you feel your anxiety starting to come up, when you start to notice yourself getting worked up over an issue or whatever it is, what I want you to do, and it's not easy, but what I want you to do is fight that thought with an action. If you are scared, for example, let's say you're in class or something, and then you're thinking about raising your hand because you have to go to the bathroom or something, but you get this this is from experience. You get anxious, you get worried about other people think of you, so you don't raise your hand, so you don't go to the bathroom, you just hold it out, as an example. What I want you to do is do that thing you're afraid of as soon as you can, because this happens. The longer you think about it, the longer you wait to take action, the worse and worse it gets. The more things that come to your brain that make you get worried about the situation, the less you have control over yourself in saying, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. The longer you put it off, the easier it is to continue putting it off. It's the way things are in life. It's kind of like when you give yourself the ability to do something that you shouldn't be doing, and then because you've done it once, now it's easier to do it the second time and the third time. And soon enough, you've done it like 20 times or whatever. And you're like, oh yeah, it's no big deal to do this bad thing that I shouldn't be doing because I've done it so many times before now. and it's not a big deal anymore, even though I still feel guilty about it, right? um, and then it develops into something you really dislike about yourself. So when you start getting this anxious feeling, what I want you to do is, as soon as you realize you're having it, try to combat it with an action, and that action being what you're afraid of. So if it's raising your hand, if it's telling that joke that you thought was funny but you think no one else will think is funny, um, or whatever it is, whatever is giving you that anxiety, maybe it is you're worried about the test that's coming up, um, what I want you to do is figure out how you can take action. Maybe it's study. Maybe it's just calling somebody up and being like, "Hey, I'm worried about this next test," and they'll be like, "Oh, me too," or, "Oh, I'm not that worried," and you can talk to them about it. What I want you to do is take action as fast as possible, because that will stop your mind from running that race of that panic. Um, so a lot of times our minds go in loops. We think about something and then we think about it again, and then we think about it again. Our minds do this weird loop thing. We get caught in this trap. But in action, when we take a physical action, it forces our brain forward to the next step, um, which is great when you are really creative person. If you're a creative person, and you're writing um, a book or a song or doing a piece of art, or um, maybe you're sewing something or whatever it is, if you ever get trapped in this place where you're like, I don't know what to do next, I don't know what to do next, if you just start taking action, your brain will stop the loop and start moving forward again. When you're writing a book, um, you're writing something down, and then you can't think of, what should I do in the story next? How do I get from this point to this point? This sort of thing. The best thing you can do is just start writing. You might not know what to write. Just kind of write your ideas, right? Okay, and then he does this, and you can erase it, right? But what happens is that your brain gets out of this mental loop and starts being forced forward because you took an action. And the same thing goes with anxiety. The best way to fix the anxiety is to face those fears that you're having, because then you'll prove to your mind time and time again that those fears aren't real. Or if they are real, they're not that big of a deal. It's okay at the end of the day. It's okay. And so what you show your mind is you prove to it that there's no real reason to get so worked up. And then your mind can start not getting worked up over things anymore, because you've already proven to it that it doesn't need to, by your action and by what actually is happening in reality in front of you when you take those actions that you're afraid of, or when you talk to those people that you're afraid of, or when you do whatever it is. So that would be my best advice, going forward. If you, Joe said earlier, it takes a long time to change these habits, but also, sometimes in life you always get caught off guard. Once in a while, something will creep up on you, and then give you a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress, a little bit of worry. Um, there's no life without that sort of thing. But the main thing is you can get yourself away from the habit of doing that about everything. Um, and that just comes through practice. And so once again, I just encourage you to, you know, whenever you start to feel your anxiety flare up, immediately take action, um, by doing that thing that you're afraid of, because that is definitely what can pull you through that. Um, through my experience, it's through forcing myself to do those things that I got over my anxiety. And it's by forcing myself to do the things I'd never done before that I created my self confidence. Because until you start to do the things you've never done before, until you start to do the things that you're afraid of, there's no reason to have confidence in yourself, because you've only seen yourself back down. But if you start to see yourself do things that once seemed scary, if you force yourself to go outside your bubble, to talk to strangers that you don't know, or whatever it is that scares you, if you see yourself do those things and you've done them, now you start to have belief in yourself. You start to go, oh, this is who I am. I'm the person that did that. And then you start to have this confidence. So confidence comes from action, and it doesn't come from being confident before the action. Confidence is a result of being able to do the action when you were inconfident. Confidence comes from faith and bravery, I suppose. By having there's so many things in life we don't want to do. But when we choose to do them anyways, despite our inconfidence, that's where confidence comes from. We know, hey, I'm confident I can do this task that I've never done before. I have no idea how to do this job, but I'm confident it will go okay because I've done a lot of things now that I've never done before. And they all, one way or another, they turned out. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe I totally messed up the whole thing. But I know that I did it. I know that I tried. And I know that I can do this. I know that I can try to do this. And no matter what happens, all of life is pretty much just improvisation. You're playing it as you go along. A lot of times you don't get to study before the issue comes up about how to solve the issue that you're being confronted with. A lot of times you don't get time to study, like, oh, here's your job. This is what you're going to be doing. In the real world, you get a job and you're like, oh, forget everything you learned in college. This is what we do here.
Right.
I'm not kidding.
True.
So, at some point, because you've been through so much and you've allowed yourself to be in those positions, especially in the times where it didn't go well, you start to have confidence in yourself because you know that no matter what happens, I'll figure out my way through it. I'll improvise my way through it. We'll get through it somehow. And maybe at the end of the day, it's going to be a total wreck and I'll make things worse than it started out. But you know what? That's all learning experience. Mm-hmm. I can take that to the next day. And now I know I have time to think and I'm like, oh, okay. So next time I'm going to do this instead. And then you start moving things forward, right? So that a lot of times confidence comes through failures and then getting over those failures. Confidence comes from not backing down. Confidence comes from where you lack confidence and then you try anyways. Mm-hmm. So again, my encouragement is just to, whenever you feel anxiety, whenever you feel fear, whenever you're not certain you can do something, pretend you're confident almost. Well, you have to just go at it, confident or not. Just give your best because you are you. You can only give what you can give, you can only do what you can do. There's no anyone who hates someone for trying to do something. I think intentions matter, right? If you're trying to do something because you want to help, but you end up ruining everything, right? Your intentions matter beyond the act because, God knows what you were trying to do. Mm-hmm. You know what you were trying to do, and that's in your heart. And you know that you are trying to do a good thing. And that gives you the understanding of yourself. That gives you, even if things didn't go well, you can look back at yourself and say, I'm a good person. My intentions were good, even if the result is bad. But, and having a lot of happiness comes from satisfaction of how you see yourself. Happiness a lot of times is based on how you see yourself, how you see the world around you, and whether you're satisfied. Mm-hmm. You can learn to be satisfied with anything. But there is maybe something in us.
Content.
Yes, content. Sorry. Yes, you can learn to be content with anything, but not satisfied.
A healthy dissatisfaction can be good.
Yes,
because it can cause us to want to improve things.
Absolutely. Yep. It's hard to be. I'll tell you what. It is hard, in fact, impossible, to be satisfied with yourself and who you are if you know you've not been doing the right things.
Mm.
It's hard to live with yourself when you feel guilty. It's hard to
Yeah.
live with yourself when you look back at yourself and you say, I'm a terrible person. You know, most of the people that I've talked to that are depressed, one thing that a lot of them say is, I'm a terrible person. I don't know why you say you love me or why you invest time in me. Like, I'm a terrible person. You don't understand. I'm a terrible person. And that's the hardest thing to live with, I think, in life, is when you think that you're a terrible person. But that doesn't mean you really are, but also doesn't mean you can't change or fix that. If you think you're a terrible person, well, then perfect. That's the greatest time to start changing
Mm.
who that person is. You know,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean it's easy. It's not the easiest place to start improving from, but it's the one that probably has the best motivation, and it's probably the one that needs it the most. Self
And it
improvement,
can be done.
it can be done. Oh, I promise you, it can be done. Joe and I have both been there, and so have many other people.
Mhm.
Um, you know, you can hate yourself, but you can start to move forward into this person that you come to love, even though that's weird. You know, to love yourself seems weird. I think a lot of times loving yourself comes through learning to love others,
Mm.
because then you start to see yourself through how you see others. You start to look at yourself saying, oh, I've been an awesome person. I've been nice to these people. Like, I've been a loving person. And when you fill yourself with a love that's giving, I think a lot of times most of the worries in life go away, and most of your internal problems can naturally go away because you're starting to live that lifestyle that brings happiness. Um, you know, I think humans are called to love. That is one of the very interesting and unique things about human nature, is that we have this big heart and we can selflessly love and help people. Um, it's a beautiful thing. It's a curious thing. Um, and a lot of us, you know, that's what compels us forward in life. And I think that's a good thing. Um, so anyways, it's kind of like a side topic, but regardless, um, yeah, I hope all of that helps. I hope that's a more practical way of looking at this and saying, you know, just take action. When you're afraid, the best thing you can do is take action.
Yeah. I love that because it's a great reminder that our lives are lived in the now. Our lives are
Mhm.
lived in the moment we're in right now. We spend a lot of time thinking about the past and
Right.
wondering, about the past and what we could have done differently in the past. And yeah, Bree the kitty, I saw uh, some of your messages here, and we will get to your struggle. It's
Hmm.
it's quite intense.
Hmm.
But yeah, we spend a lot of time thinking about the past, and we spend a lot of time thinking about the future, and we forget that our life is the now. You
What we
know
do now affects the future.
what? Yeah, well, yeah, it's very true. But what we're doing now is the only thing we have control over. We
True.
have no control over what happened in the past. Now we can somewhat control the future, but only by what we do now. And when, like what Ryan was saying, if you know you're doing things that if you're doing things that you know are wrong, or might I even say evil, or whatever, if you know
You're
deep
not
down
proud of. The
inside.
things you're not proud
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a way better way of putting it. Thank you.
That's what I
Um,
like to phrase it as. I think
yes,
everyone knows what that is.
things you're not proud of. Then your whole perspective on the past and the future is going to be soured to some degree because of
Mhm.
that. But if you can learn to live with virtue, doing the things you know are right, doing the things you know are honest, doing the things you know are good for yourself and for other people in the now, then that goes so far to building your self-confidence and to building, and it can erase bad memories. It will maybe not erase, but at least calm the pain of the bad memories. And then also, make for a brighter look at the future, because no matter what happens, at least you're doing what's right. And there's something to that. It's incredible. And the first time any of you, a lot of you have probably done this already. I did very little of it until I got older. But when you do something right, that is the right thing to do, and it's going to be painful, and that it would be much easier to do the wrong thing, but you do the right thing anyway. Even though it hurts, you feel so much better.
That's what creates happiness a lot of times.
Yes, that pain, even though you go through pain, it makes you happy because you know that you did the right thing. As opposed, and if you don't do it, then your self-confidence goes down a little bit. And it's like, I could have done a little better. And then you're back stuck in the past again. You're thinking, well, I could have, I should have, I would have. Yeah, well, I didn't, unfortunately. So now what I can do is learn and take that and make it a learning experience. Be like, okay, now I know what that feels like. I don't want to feel this again. I'm going to do differently the next time I'm faced with this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I need to ask for forgiveness, I will ask for forgiveness and I will move on. But right now is our life. And that's all that we have control over. So thank you, Haley, so much for that question.
Yeah. Thanks, Haley.
Yes. So
right, so Bree has some stuff going on here. Do you want to get to that one?
I've written.
Oh, you've written it out.
I've written quite a bit of it. I was trying to keep track as she was putting it out, but there are dimensions, now that, from the conversation that, have expanded it. But I'll read what is here, and then maybe if we find other things that add to it, then we can put them in there too. But Bree started by saying, how do you deal with a traumatizing experience? There are a few things in my past that really haunt me. How do I deal with that? And then she goes on that she says, I used to have a friend. She was absolutely amazing. She was the one that made me realize I was bisexual. I really loved her, and she slipped through my fingertips the day she took her life. That day really hurt me. She told me about her thoughts, and I brushed them off carelessly. I just hugged her and told her it would be okay. It wasn't enough. Her life slipped through my fingertips like sand. And that's where I left off. And I know there's been other things posted.
Yeah. She's never really told anybody this, but Nathan, and that they weren't even 8 years old. So that's quite young. It's very, very young.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, Bree. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you've had to go through this, because, oh my gosh, what pain to lose a friend. And especially a friend that's that close and that impactful in our lives.
Yeah.
It's such a hard experience.
Yeah, no kidding. So I can still remember how she looked, how she smelled, what she sounded like, how it felt when she said my name. It hurts so much. And I could totally believe that is so traumatizing. I've met a lot of people who have had to deal with suicide in their family or in their loved ones and their friends. Some people who have literally been onlookers present at the scene when they killed themselves. And that is always traumatizing. Every time. I know someone who has experienced it like 3 times. And one of them was with his family member. I think it was his dad or something. And and then he's had a total of 7 people he knew have commit suicide, and it's just something that he, it surrounds his life. It's constantly in his brain. And one thing that's really damaging is that in that situation, it makes you think about taking that out, taking that path, because that's something that you experienced when you were young. And now it's stuck in your brain. So when you think about life and how hard it can be, sometimes you resort to, well, maybe I'll just do the same thing that they did. Maybe I'll just, commit suicide, and then I'll be done with it. I won't have to have any worries anymore. I'll be dead, no more stress, whatever. That's what they did, So that kind of thing is in your mind because you've seen it happen um, in your life. So I can imagine how painful that is.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Um, I have some more I can talk about on this subject, but I would really like to hear what Joel has to say about this.
Well, I appreciate that. It's taken like everything I have to not start sobbing through some of this, reading
Yeah,
through what she's doing. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk, because I was like really
trying to
starting
catch up. I get
to
it.
try to I
So
was
hard.
choking up. Uh, Bree, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That hurts so bad. And grieving is something that, every single one of us, we all have to do it, from time to time. That's
Mhm.
a part of our life, is the grief process. And, we need to give ourselves that time to heal. And I'm really struggling to find words, and it's so hard because this is so painful, and I had a friend whose son died. He was a friend who was a little older than me. He was a former coworker of mine, and he had a son who he was 19 years old, and he died. The 19-year-old son died, and it was, I don't know if they called it a suicide, but he had, there were multiple different drugs in his system, like over the counter and prescription drugs that were his own prescriptions, and also alcohol. And so I'm not sure. I don't know if they ruled it a suicide or if it was just a mishap in a they mingled with each other wrong, everything
Mm.
kind of mixed in his system wrong, and he ended up dying. But I remember giving him a call after I learned about it, and he talked, and I said, man, I really don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. And he said, you know what, Joe, sometimes it's not important whether we know what to say or not. It's just important that you're there, and thank you for being there. And we kind of just sat there in silence on the phone for a little bit,
Mhm.
and it's so hard to lose someone close to us. And you said something very interesting here, Bree. A few things. You said, I should have seen it. And you said, I could have done more. And I think that's a common thought and a common feeling when someone close to us dies, or in your case, commits suicide. And I remember my aunt, when one of her daughters, my cousin, died. My cousin had Down syndrome. And so she already, probably wasn't going to live till being old, but they didn't know. I mean, she lived into like her early 30s, I think.
That's pretty good.
And yeah, but she was in a wheelchair most of her life. And I remember the day of her funeral, and my aunt was just, she broke down crying and kept saying, I could have been better. I could have been a better mom. I could have done better, And I remember, just it was such a striking moment. I'll never forget that. It was like,
Mm.
here's a lady who, she was a mom. She did everything she could to take care of her child who was born with Down syndrome, and raised her as best she could and did everything she could. And even at the end of all that, she was saying, I could have done better. I could have been better. Much like you're saying here, Bree, that you're saying you could have done more. And, I think that we always could have done more. We always could do better in everything, whether it's related to someone else's life, whether it's related to our job, whether it's related to schoolwork. We could always have tried harder and done more. It's very rare, those moments that we leave everything on the table and just put everything out there. It always feels like, what, when we look back on it, it's like, I could have tried harder. I remember being a swimmer in high school and I was like, man, I could have in the 500, I could have stretched a little harder. I could have worked a little harder in practice. I could have done more. And, even though it wasn't pertaining to a situation like this, where it was a friend dying, and even more traumatic, a friend taking their own life. And now I see your recent posts that you were there at her house the day before it happened. And it's like, what? So like one day you're there with your friend and the next day she's gone. And it can hurt so bad. And you feel guilty.
Mm. Yeah.
Man. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Bree. And I hope that one day, it might take some time. For a while, you may just have to cry for a while, and that's totally okay. And you may have to take some time to just back away and process some things. But I know that deep down inside, you crave healing. And your friend would want you to heal from this wound as well. When we love somebody, we want them to heal. And I think your friend still loves you and wants you to heal. And we've said it before, and I'll say it 5 million times before I die, I'm sure, that the avenue to healing is forgiveness. And in this case, it sounds like you may have to forgive the most difficult person to forgive, and that is you. We always have the hardest time forgiving ourselves. It's easy to forgive another person, relatively. Sometimes it's not easy to forgive somebody. But compared to forgiving ourselves, forgiving other people is easy. And when Ryan goes blurry,
what the heck? Okay.
It's been 7 years. Bree, I don't know where you are. I don't know what part of the world you're in, but if you happen to be in the United States, there is a place called Ellie's Place. There's a organization called Ellie's Place, ELE''S Place. Okay, you're in Florida. Look up online to see if there's Ellie's Place down there. I know we have it up here in Michigan. My wife had a cousin who committed suicide, and it happened when she was, I think, 20 years old. And she still carries scars from that. And, you know, years have passed. And I remember when I first started dating her in our early 20s, it was really still fresh, and it had been a few years since it happened. And she carried that and carried that and carried that, and it disrupted her life in so many ways because it was just there weighing down on her heart. And she started going to Ellie's Place. This it's generally for kids, but also for adults, you know. But I mean, a lot of times it's for kids and teenagers and stuff like that. That's kind of what it's geared for. But suicide affects everybody, no matter what your age.
That's true.
And that is a place where she was able to start the process of healing. She was able to get around people and understand that other people are struggling too. And it's okay for me to hurt. It's okay for me to be going through this pain, and it's normal. It's not normal what happened. It's not right what happened. But it is normal to feel this deep pain as a result. And it really, really helps her start the healing process. And even now, you know, it's still there. The wounds are still there. The scars are still there, like I said. But the longer you can go to forgive yourself, the more you can do to remind yourself that, because truly, Bree, even though it may feel like your fault, it's not your fault. It's absolutely not your fault. And you are a valuable person. Your friend is a valuable person too. And sadly, that life ended. But you are a valuable person, and you are not responsible for this. I know that I'm sure lots of people have said that. And I don't know if me saying it is going to have any different effect. But even though you're right, you know, there's, I don't know if you're talking to me or Zion or somebody, but you don't know that. I do know that you're valuable. And even though when you look back, we always look back and we go, you know, I could have done something different. I could have done something to prevent it. I could have done something. I could have changed my actions, my thoughts, and the way I talked or whatever. I could have done something different. But you loved this person. And you did the absolute best you could with what you had and the knowledge you had at the time. And when somebody does this, there are so many things that are going on in their life that are just weighing them down, and there's so much swirling around, and they just want to escape. And so it's not your fault. And I don't know if there's something you could have done to prevent it or not. But I also know that even in things that are our fault. Even when I do something and it messes something up for another person and it was totally my fault. Maybe I never have contact with that person again. And I feel guilty about it for a long, long time. The only way I'm ever going to heal is if I forgive myself for my mistakes. Because if you could have done more, and if you knew at the time that you could have been doing more and you didn't, it was a mistake. And everybody makes mistakes. And when we make mistakes, we have to learn to forgive ourselves. And that's the way we heal. And Bree, I hope you don't go before Ryan has a chance to talk, because hopefully you don't want to go because of something I said. I hope I didn't say something to offend you. But man, I sure hope you can heal. I sure hope that at some point you can learn to forgive yourself. And Ryan, what do you got?
Sure. I hope Brie doesn't leave, but we'll see. She says, no, you didn't. You didn't say anything in front of her. She might have to go because of the time. She usually does leave about this time. I'll try to. Yeah, it still hurts. I'm sure. I'm sure it will hurt for a long time. I have to. If you don't mind, I'm going to try to sum up what I have to say quickly. Um, it's, I've actually had someone that committed suicide in my life. Um, oh, okay. So I can take my time, you're saying? Okay. All right. um, I can understand the feeling of wanting to go though, because I'm sure the pain is just welling up inside of you, and that you want to just leave because it hurts, and you don't want to be a part of something that hurts. I get that. But anyways, okay. So, yes, and Master Lay is correct. We do love you, Brie. Like, some things I want you to think about. Um, I guess the main thing I want you to think about is this. You know, when someone commits suicide or when someone dies that we're close to, that we love, we're filled with this pain, whether we think it's our fault or we don't. Well, even when we know, okay, that had nothing to do with that. I had no choice in what their actions were, and they chose those actions all on their own. You know, um, ultimately, at the end of the day, the person that holds the knife to their throat or whatever it is the person actually doing it. And so, unless you actually physically murder somebody, you're not making that choice for them. But I can understand the sentiment of, I said those things to them, and then they did that because I said those things or because I reacted the way I did. I can totally understand that. But one thing I want you to think about is this: that pain that you feel, whether you're responsible or not, you're going to feel that pain because that's somebody that you loved, and you have this sense of understanding of their value. And the fact that that value is no longer in the world, the fact that the world no longer has that person, the fact that you no longer have that person there with you, the fact that that person's life ended, you feel this emptiness. And that emptiness should remind you of your own value and the value of everybody else around you. Because we're all equal in value in that way. When someone dies, people grieve. You know, um, I don't really know if you're religious or not, but it's almost shocking because in the story, in the Bible, there's a story where Jesus goes to his friend's house, and his friend has died, and Jesus already knows he's going to raise this person from the dead, and Jesus is God, and Jesus is going to raise this person from the dead, but yet he still grieves, he still cries, he still bawls. at his friend's death. That seems peculiar. It seems strange. Right. And she's swept with them. Why, if you created the whole world and you can snap your finger and someone's raised from the dead, do you still cry? And it's because you love that person. It's because that person to you is so valuable. Nothing can replace them, right? But nothing can replace you either. Nothing can replace anybody. So when you feel that pain is there to show you how valuable people are. And it will be there probably, unfortunately, for the rest of your life. Maybe not so bad, maybe not to a point where it's traumatizing, or maybe not to a point where it makes you feel so much pain that you have to cry. Um, though that's not bad. Um, but with time, maybe it might be 20 years from now. Eventually, it will become just a part of your story, you know, and it will be okay. Um, but what you get to take with you is that you can have such a big heart. You can grow so much from this experience, and while everything happens in life for a reason, but that doesn't mean that person died just so you can learn a lesson. It's not okay that that person did that. It's not okay that they did that. It wasn't part of anybody's plan. It wasn't good. But good can come of it if you choose. And that's one of the things that's beautiful about life, is that you can take something that's terrible, that's bad, and then you can take the things that you learn from it and use that as you continue forward.
Mm.
And you have such a deep love for this person. If you can learn to love other people that same way, is if you know that their time is not going to last forever, if you know that someday they're going to be gone, that gives you the ability to love people way beyond the norm, way beyond what other people understand, because you've experienced it firsthand. That pain that goes when someone is gone, you know, and you can treat everybody with such a profound sense of love because you've been through that experience. I think that's beautiful. Doesn't mean that there's, again, it's not good thing that this person died, but your life continues on and you can make it so beautiful and you can make it a wonderful story. Many things happen in life that are not okay,
Mhm.
but that we are still capable of making those things help us. And we're still able to do things for those who are still with us.
Mhm.
Um, and so, if you ever get into the situation where you feel like you want to commit suicide, just remember your friend. And that's sounds awful. It sounds so painful, and it is. But the reason that pain is there is because that they're a human being, and so are you. It's because that their value is limitless, infinite, and that's true for you too. That pain that you feel about it, that emptiness, that's the same that other people would feel for you, and also it's the same value that you have. Um, and I know that's really hard to take all of that in, and it's hard. I get it, and I'm sorry, but that is true. Let me tell you, I think I was about 18 or 19. I fell in love with this girl, and she was awesome, but she was suicidal, and her name was Marianelle. It was a very beautiful name, Marianelle.
Mm.
Um, So Mary and I, we got to meet each other online, and we had talked for several months. And over the time that I had talked to her, she started to see some progress, as far as being suicidal, because I was always trying to be uplifting. I was trying to do my best for her, to show her that she's a wonderful person. She doesn't need to think bad about herself, and it did help. And not just through me, but her friends were there helping her as well. Um, and she had this ex-boyfriend. Well, it wasn't really an ex-boyfriend, it was, but what had happened is she got into this relationship with a person who was also suicidal. And after a period of time, they were together for several years. And at some point, they said, or she's told him that, look, like, we're just going to take a break. And she didn't want him to commit suicide because she knew that if she dumped him, he would probably commit suicide because he she was all he had to hang on to in his life. And so instead, she told him, we're just going to take a break for a while and then we're going to come back to it. Um, so they were in this break period for a while. And it's really hard when you get two people who hate themselves together,
Mm.
because relationships thrive in helping each other. But if you hate yourself, it's hard. It's just really hard. Um, to just give yourself and do everything you can, and have courage to do everything you need to do for the other person. But anyways, it was a really stressful situation for both of them. So they were taking a break, and during this break, this is when I had met her. Um, and so I had fallen in love with her, but she not me. She was not in love with me, and that was fine. Um, but we would talk like every day. Um, and at some point, he came to know about me. And so the thing is, he was in this situation where he was basically a stalker. His life was so centered around this person and obsessed with this girl, that and every emotional state that he was in was based on this girl. So, um, he wanted to know what she was doing at all times, if she was seeing anybody, if she was talking to any other guys. And so he would take her phone and read her messages,
Mm.
try to spy on her in games that she played, and try to find her chats and read through them, things like that, um, which is not good. But that was the state he was in. And I can understand. I feel like I've been in a similar place before. Um, I've felt like that. Um, and so, anyways, um, time goes on. Everything seems to be fine. But this one time, he had logged online into the game that I and her were playing together. Her and I should say, were playing together, and she realized that he logged on. So she told me, "Hey, he just came online. If he asks if you've seen me, tell her I haven't been on the game for a month now. Tell him I haven't been on for about a month or something." And I was like, "Okay," you know. And so I did. I talked with him, and then I lied to him. I told him, yeah, she hasn't been here for, I don't know, about a month or something. And I took that time to talk to him for a couple of minutes. He seemed like a nice guy, seemed like a guy I could have been friends with, seemed like a guy that if I would have taken the time, I really could have been a part of his life and we really could have been friends. Um, but that was that. That's as far as it went. Um, and then, we continued talking, me and her, and several months went by. And then I was at school at college. I got a message on my phone and it said, "Hey, how do you spell your name again?" And so I wrote my full name out. And I thought it was weird because the question ended in the question was written out different than she normally wrote. And she didn't respond after I put it. And so then I became worried. Um, in fact, she didn't respond that whole day, or the whole next 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 day. And I was really worried because I wasn't sure what happened. All I got was that message. And I knew that she was trying to hide me and her and other relationships online from her parents because her parents were very anti online friendship type people. So she always hid the fact that she would play games online with other people from her parents. I wasn't sure if maybe she got grounded, or I wasn't sure if that message came from her boyfriend. I wasn't sure, or her ex boyfriend, or what had happened, but it was really, I did not sleep. It was, it was, I was so worried. I was worried sick. I literally could not sleep for a week straight until one day she finally came online. I remember I was pacing in my room like all night. I couldn't sleep. And finally she messaged me and I was like, and I jumped on my computer as fast as possible. And, I had a million questions, but, most of all, I just wanted to make sure she was okay. And so, um, eh, things were not okay. She told me what had happened is he was the one that sent out that message. And apparently on her phone, she had me under a different name. She had me under the name of some person, whatever. And he had messaged me on her phone. He stole her phone and messaged me and asked me my name. And then when I gave the return message, obviously I answered it different than what the name said. And so he had realized that something was definitely going on. So he wrote a note that said, "It's all Marianelle's fault. She broke my heart." And he put it on his bed. And then he went off to school and he jumped in front of the train and he killed himself that morning. And this happened in Toronto, Canada, Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. And that month, they decided we're going to put up gates and fences to make sure people cannot jump in front of the train. Because when they do, they don't just injure themselves. Sometimes the people on the train get injured too, because the train comes to a halt so fast, um, because a body is laying on the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you ever go to Canada or you ever see the fences there, that's my fault. I could say, that's my fault. I could have made a friendship with that person. I'll tell you what, it's the last time I ever lied to somebody. I'm not lying to anybody again. How could I? If that happens when I lie, I lied for the protection of somebody else. Like, I get that. I lied because I didn't want him to feel bad. I wanted to make sure he was okay. So I lied to him. But imagine if I was honest. Imagine if I took that time to become his friend instead. But I didn't. And you can imagine, see, she had made this pact with him. She said, if you commit suicide, I'm committing suicide too. That's the pact that they made when they fell in love. And so she was determined that she was going to commit suicide. But luckily, I did everything I could. I said, don't do it. Don't commit suicide. It's not your fault. You're not the one that jumped in front of the train tracks. He is. He's the one that made that choice. It's not your fault. Yes, he left a note saying it's all your fault. It's not your fault. And it wasn't. It's not her fault. It's not her fault that he did that. It's not her fault that he put all of those feelings on her, that he made her feel all of that dread, all of that pain. It's not her fault that he jumped in front of those tracks. That's so painful. but it's not her fault. Was she a part of it? Yeah, she was a part of it. But she didn't make the choice. She was a part of it. She's a part of that story. I'm a part of that story. His family's a part of that story. His friends are a part of that story. Her friends are a part of that story. The people who didn't even know him, who are friends with her, are part of that story. Because what happened was she had already set the date. She knew she was going to commit suicide. But she happened to take a call, and I had done everything I could. Again, sleepless nights. I could not go to sleep. This person was on my mind. I would have wanted to protect them. I couldn't do anything. And no matter what I said, it didn't matter. But she got on a video call with a person, and the person had literally cried in front of her because he was so concerned and so worried and so upset that he just started crying. And she saw the pain she was causing them, and she started crying too. And she decided she wasn't going to do it. She said she wouldn't commit suicide. And I was so happy. And I was so mad because I had been crying the whole time. But I didn't think to face call her while I was crying.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think about, if only I had showed her my tears, if I had shown her my pain. I was trying to stay strong for her. I was trying to show, be her rock that she could, lean on, because I need to be strong for this person. But it was when another person showed their weakness and how torn up they were that she was able to cope. She was able to get through that moment. And, she ended up falling in love with this other guy. In the end, I don't talk to her anymore because she disappeared. But she didn't commit suicide, but she lost her laptop, and then I think what she did is probably just didn't lose a laptop, but her laptop died. And I think what she ended up doing was she just decided that she didn't want to cause me any pain anymore, because she knew that I loved her, but she was dating this other guy, so she broke it off. She said, I won't talk to him anymore. And I respect that. That's fine. But that's that story. That's that intense story. And that was intense in my life. I wasn't very close to the person, but I still felt it, and I felt it even more through her than I felt, than anything, because I can't protect the person who's dead, but I can at least try to protect the person who's still alive. So, these things happen in life, and we can say I was a part of that story. Some things, they were my fault. Some things I said, some things I could have done, I didn't do. Some things I didn't know I should have done. Wasn't thinking straight. I'm sorry. But that's part of the story of life, But doesn't mean it's all terrible. It's kind of a beautiful story. Even though it's tragic, even though it's painful, I learned the power of spending time with people, showing them my affection and love, not lying to them, even if the situation seems like I'm lying to protect them. If I take that chance to protect them and then tell them the truth, then maybe I can do something. I learned how much, the pain of losing somebody, and how important people are, and how powerful love is. How powerful someone just weeping in front of you can be, and that life doesn't go the way you want it to. But life is still absolutely beautiful. And it's worth living. It's worth holding on to. It's worth making those memories, the good ones and the bad ones. It's worth loving on other people. You know, that person came to me, this girl, Marianelle, and she told me, you know, you've changed my life. You've changed my life. And that's beautiful. That I get to be a part of that person's life for the rest of their life because of the time I spent with them. You know? And even beyond life, even outside of life, you know? What effects that has on our younger generations and what effects that has on our afterlife. These are all things that are beautiful. There is really so much beauty, but we have to have the eye to see it through the pain. And you know what? You cannot prove love. You cannot prove that you love something without pain. You cannot prove that you love something without suffering. Because it's through suffering which love is then proven. You can tell somebody, hey, I love you all day long. But until you show that person, like, hey, I've been to hell and back for you. Like, hey, I have cried nights, endless nights without sleep because I love you. I have been put in a situation where I have been picked on and bullied because I love you. Until you actually suffer for somebody, they're just words, right? And you might mean them, they might be true, but love is proven through suffering. Because suffering is the one thing none of us want to do. Who wants to suffer? You might say, oh, I want to suffer right now because I want to grow, because that's where growth comes from too. But honestly, no one wants to feel pain. No one wants to hurt. No one wants to suffer. But when we're able to do those things that we don't want, when we're able to put up with the things that didn't go the way they should have, when we just suffered, we can take that and understand that that's love. That's the most beautiful thing on earth. I'm sorry, but life without suffering? Have me a nice big glass of suffering. Life without suffering is life without love. I have, you've heard my song, A Reason for Suffering.
That's one of my favorites.
Thanks. Why do we suffer? It's because that's what proves to our heart that our heart is valuable. That's what proves to us that love is worth having. That's what proves to us that our hearts are worth the ache that they feel. Life is amazing and worth it all. And sometimes it's through that suffering that we get to see that. And so it's okay. It hurts. I understand. Your question is, how do you get over that trauma? Find the good in it. Let it carry you forward. Remind yourself that it's not your choice to make. It wasn't your choice to make. So it's not ultimately your fault. You're part of the story. But it wasn't your choice. Forgive yourself, ultimately. Like Joe was saying, that's really the main thing. Remember not to hold on to that it's your fault. I mean, because it's not. You didn't make the choice. At the end of the day, the choice was up to them. And I don't mean to shame them by saying that. They were going through a lot, and they were making the choice that they thought they had to make. I'm not trying to say that they messed up. But there you go. Forgive yourself. Remember, it's not your fault. Even if they wrote a note on their bed saying, it's all your fault, it's not. But anyways, I'll let you go. I love you so much.
Bree, thank you so much for sharing. And remember this, if you're still listening by any chance, remember one thing, that at least going through this, you will be able to help another person go through this more effectively than anybody else, because you have been to this place. And so you will be able to love another person who's going through this same issue in a way that nobody else can. And so you can bring the power of this, of your experience, into that, and you'll be far more effective than others could be. So thank you again,
Yes,
Bree.
thank you, Bree.
And
Sorry.
well, I sure hope that you can heal from this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't imagine that this talk will help you immediately. It's not one of those, it's not something, it's like, we said this and now you no longer have trauma. It won't work like
Right.
that.
No, it does. That's not how it is.
Right.
It's
But
definitely a process.
we can at least be here to hold you and hug you virtually with our words and love you. We do love you, Bree. You're a wonderful person. So
Yep.
yes, and you can try. Exactly. That's all you can do.
hmm We
But
love you,
trying
Bree.
matters.
Much, much, much love. You're surrounded by friends here,
Hmm.
and we're always very glad to see you here.
Absolutely.
So,
Mhm.
wow. Ryan, I don't think I've ever heard that story. But knowing that I was a friend of yours when you went through that, I know I was part of it too.
You were. You were. Definitely.
Uh, wow. Well, you guys, I gotta tell you, all of you that are in the chat right now, I have been reading this, everything you guys have been posting,
I
and
haven't. I'm sorry.
you,
I was talking.
no, it's, when you're talking, you can't,
Yeah,
it's
it's
really,
hard to read and talk at the same time.
especially when you're in the middle of a story that gripping that you were going through, Ryan. But I was just reading through the stuff as it was being posted, and you guys are so supportive.
Hmm.
You guys are so wonderful. Oh my gosh, you guys that come to these and chat and everything. I can't tell you how much it impacts me to read the things you guys post in the chat, and just how much you guys support each other. And
Yeah.
wow, you guys are absolutely incredible. And yes, Toasty, your glass of suffering was amazing. uh, yes.
Hmm.
There was a lot of wisdom you guys posted in there that whole time.
Yep. Thank you guys so much.
Yep. So, wow. Well, let's see. Jesse posted on here. Well, he didn't post in the chat. He private messaged us. We're about an hour and a half. Bye, Bree. We love you. Our love and prayers go with you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Mhm. Um, and let's see. So
I
we
think
did.
probably the story I told made the pain worse for her, but hopefully that will come to
Sure,
relieve something as well.
sure.
Because
But
I
that,
think,
sometimes that's what happens, like the absolutely traumatic experiences, and experiencing the pain, and allowing yourself to go deep into the pain
hmm,
is what can truly heal you.
yeah,
When you go to that spot, I
it's true.
remember dealing with an issue, and I was dealing with some deep issues, and I was talking to a spiritual director about some of this stuff. And um his father Steve, he helped me go through this program.
Which church is that in Lansing?
Yeah, yep,
Cool.
yep, at Church of the Resurrection. He and I, at any rate, he had encouraged me to go through this program, this healing program, and he said, we're having this, it's going to be happening on a Saturday, we got speakers coming in, blah 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 blah, you should come. Because he was noticing some of the things as I was telling him some of the stuff that was going on. He's like, oh, this program would be perfect for this guy, right? And he says, you should come. And I'm like, wow, man, I really am not going to be able to make it to the thing. But he said, well, check it out online, and so he had me check out, came from the John Paul II Healing Center, and it was, there's this healing program they had, and it was, however much money to get all their audios of the talks and the workbook and all these kinds of different things. And then, so I went through the stuff, and then I went back to him, and he walked me through some of the stuff in there. And he said, okay, he actually took me back in my mind to an experience that I had pretty much forgotten about. And it happened to be a defining moment in a whole bunch of problems that had happened in my life. And it was this moment that he kind of had me go and relive the pain of this moment. And he's like, okay, so this particular moment, I was in 7th grade, and I remember just a feeling of helplessness. I was being bullied, which was kind of normal for me at that age. Anytime, if you were here earlier in the stream, you heard I had self-confidence issues from about 7th grade until the time I was about 26. Well, it was partially because I was bullied pretty severely for a long time, until I just decided to hate everybody for a long time.
That's a great
because that's how you handle it right there.
I've done that.
Yeah. So at any rate, but he took me back to that experience, and he said, okay, let that pain just fill you. Go back to that moment and remember that pain. Now, what did you do after that moment? And I said, well, I just went over to this spot at this staircase, and I cried. I just went off by myself and I cried. And he said, okay, go there and remember those feelings, and remember who it was that hurt you, and forgive that person. Go to that moment, feel that pain, understand how you felt, and then forgive them. Imagine yourself going to that person saying, I forgive you for this hurt. Whether they did it intentionally or not, sounds like it might have partially been intentionally. Sometimes maybe it was just being caught up in the moment, but either way, whatever happened, it hurt you. Forgive them and pray for them. And after I did that, there was a certain sense of relief. And then that led me to find other points in my life where I had felt like I'd been hurt, and to go to those places and forgive those people. And step by step, little bit by little bit, through those little acts of forgiving other people, my heart started to heal. And I appreciate what you say, Zion Mesa. It doesn't work. I imagine you're talking about going back and reliving those moments. You're right. It doesn't work if you just go back to them. What does work is if you actively forgive, truly from the bottom of your heart, forgive.
It was actually, I believe when he said doesn't work, I think that might have been when we said hating everybody, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, that might have been it. Yes, you're right. That doesn't work.
Doesn't work either. No.
But Zion has a point though, that just going back and reliving an experience doesn't help necessarily. Right. It just causes more pain. But when you can go into the midst of that pain and then forgive, at that point it wipes the slate clean. You wash yourself from the injury. It's like cleaning the wound and, actually healing the wound. You're getting rid of it through forgiveness. And then bit by bit, as I forgave other people, all those little things just started to really heal me. And I was like, oh my goodness, it actually worked. I couldn't believe it, because I'd been through psychotherapy, all kinds of craziness. It's like, I'd seen a psychologist and he helped me an awful lot, but I still was dealing with confidence issues and still dealing with, all these little, it was manifesting itself in ways that I was living my life in a non-productive way and all kinds of different stuff. But through that forgiveness, I was able to truly let go.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a good exercise to do.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. Just by forgiving someone. And it wasn't just the one thing, though. It was a lot of people. But yes, forgiveness. And that's why I'll continue to say over and over again, the route to healing is forgiveness. If you really want to be healed in an emotional pain, somebody needs some forgiveness. You probably need to forgive someone. And like in some cases it's yourself, and that's the hardest person to forgive, you know. But that is what brings about the truest emotional healing that I have ever experienced in my entire life. I've read self-help book upon self-help book upon all kinds of them about how to think right and all these kinds of different things, and they all had some effect that was for the positive. But the real healing took place in the midst of forgiveness. It's like
Yeah.
medicine. And I've heard it said before that not forgiving somebody, when you hold a grudge, it's like you're drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna chug this and you're gonna feel no, that's, if you drink poison, you're gonna be the one that gets hurt by that. Yep.
As
What
I
if you
said,
are
mad anymore? Yeah. What if you aren't mad anymore, but it still hurts?
Yeah. Well, sometimes there will still be pain. As we injure ourselves, we have scars. But you can look back on those scars after you forgive. The anger goes away, the feeling of hatred goes away, all that kind of stuff. And you can look back on the event and look back on the person and say, you know what? They just didn't have things figured out. I pity that person and I feel bad for them. And I hope that they are able to heal from this, and it
I think
truly can give you the proper perspective. But yeah.
I think I really like what you said. Will pity that person. In our common culture today, we kind of see pity as a mean thing. To pity somebody is almost as if to look down on them. And so we, like I would, people talk about like, oh, don't pity me, etc. Pity is not a bad thing. Pity, when you pity someone, that means you wish things were better for them. And that's not a bad thing. There's a difference between pity and just looking down on somebody. So I just trying to make that decision or distinguish. I want to make that I want to distinguish pity from looking down on somebody. Because a lot of times in the current culture, I see people say, don't pity me. Don't pity me. If people pity me, I appreciate that. Because pity means that they look at me. Yes, I know I'm not perfect, right? And they know it too. But to pity means that they wish things were better for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of love. Pity is not an evil act. To pity someone is to understand their situation and wish better for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever feel, so I'm just trying to say, like, try to get away from that cultural idea of what pity is and understand pity is actually a loving act. It is not evil. It is not mean to pity. To look down on somebody and simply do that, to point out their flaws, to gossip, sure. But to pity, To pity means you want better for them.
Mhm.
And that's love, to want better for them.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with pitying or to be pitied
Or sometimes to be pitiful.
or to be pitiful. Yes.
There are times in my life I've been just completely pitiful, I'll tell
Yep.
you.
Me too. It's humbling experience.
A little bit. Yeah, it's absolutely humbling for sure. But yeah. Wow. So you guys that are here, you've stuck around this whole time. It's been quite a roller
Mhm.
coaster of a show.
Yeah, for sure.
This was incredibly emotional for a big part of it. And wow. I was man, I was trying so hard not to cry, and I'm like, man.
Yeah.
I gotta just hold it together. I gotta hold it together.
You
Oh,
did good, man. You did good.
you did good. You man, your story was crazy
Uh,
amazing. Like I was just sitting there,
it's
I'm
a
listening
hard
to your
life.
story, and I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh
What
my god,
happened?
I have that. And then I'm
Oh,
like
gee.
sitting about, and I'm like sitting. Then after a while, after it got done and everything, I'm like thinking back to it, and I'm like, ooh, we should put like a soundtrack to it.
Oh, jeez. Some
It
some
totally could
wailing
have like
violin.
this organ and violin and some sound effects and
Yeah.
the some different whooshy percussion instruments.
Oh, please don't, because then you're gonna get to that part where the train comes, and that's just horrifying.
uh, and
So,
then it's just absolute silence at that point.
yeah. Yeah, don't add the sound effects. I think that'd be okay.
Okay.
Anyways,
It's
taking from
did you ever notice how many of you guys have watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Peter Jackson version?
I like that you separate the version.
Not the really old cartoon, but the Lord of the Rings,
Mm.
trilogy. It's so funny. Like every time they're going up for a battle, you know, it's like they're running at each other and the music is playing and the big horns and the whole full orchestra and everything. It's like dun, 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 it's this triumphant, like going to battle music. And then when they clash, you watch every time when they finally hit each other and start fighting, the music silent.
I bet you there's a
No
big
music.
buildup too. I bet you the violins are going,
Oh yeah.
and there's everything's getting really loud, crescendos, crescendo, and then
And then yep, nothing. And then all you hear are the sound effects of people like beating each other and slicing
rah,
with swords and yelling and screaming and dying. And yeah, it's great. It's amazing. And I was like, every single time I'm like, that what a great formula.
yeah, it's effective. It's a great formula. It
Yeah,
works every
it
time.
worked. I was like, wow, man, that's really good. That's cool.
Yeah, writing music for things like that is a really interesting thing, and I hope to do some of that in the future.
Hmm.
I will, but it'll be cool.
Excuse me.
Anyways, thank you all for joining us during this crazy roller coaster of a don't flip out Friday.
Yes. Don't flip out Friday. Oh, and I have to let somebody who's this. Oh, Lay. I saw your question on here. I don't know if you meant it to be a question because it
Oh,
was kind of a question about when you ask a question.
what was it?
Um, but I know you're going to be here in the future. Well, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah,
So
Blaze pretty awesome.
it's posted at our website, bss.studio. I will go to the actual page where we post all of our questions from the live
I got
streams
it.
here. Hmm?
There you go. Here's the link.
There's the link. Oh,
I think
hey,
that's
it's
the
there
link.
twice for you.
What? Now you
I
can
know.
click it twice.
Yes, and now you can get Zerbird on your face. What?
What?
Yes, but no, it was a very very good question, Lay,
Is
and
that how you spell that? Just what?
So yes, so we will get to that
Stan.
next time. And we've got a few. They're kind of stacking up in
Yeah,
there.
they are stacking. You know, we took
So,
so much time to answer the two that we answered today, but hopefully that touched on some subject that a lot of other people were going through, and
mhm,
it was the right thing at the right time.
mhm. Yep. Haley, I don't know if I think you've left, but if you end up watching this afterwards to the stream, your question was important. And you had mentioned that Bree's question, she sounded like she needed a lot of help. And it's true, she did. But your question was so important for so many people. I can't even tell you, how many people struggle with that same challenge.
And I'll
And
tell you what, so many of these problems that we have in life are interconnected. And y- your question might have answered part of Bree's question. You
mhm,
know, some of the things we might have said probably helped Bree in her question as well. So while we do intend to personally uh, help you through it the best that we can, you know, you do so much on your own, and we can't take credit for that. But it's as much as we intend to hopefully help you through it. Your question helps so many other people too.
mhm. Yes.
So,
So thank you. And yes, slightly above average Joe is our friend.
oh yeah, Celebrity Average Show is amazing. Love that
He
guy.
is fantastic. He does Take It Easy Tuesday
Yeah.
on
So if you're,
Tuesdays.
and yeah, he has a Twitch. If you
Mhm.
go there, you can check him out on Tuesdays, and it's a very
Yeah,
pleasant program to be a part of.
it is. I'm gonna find the link to it.
He does something similar to this. You know, it's not exactly the same thing. He's a solo man instead of two, um, but he will
Oh,
talk.
that's not
Very,
it. Oh
very pleasant.
no!
Oh no! What do you mean that's not it?
Because I've just posted.
That's the Levi Pepper show, didn't you? You got it. Oh no, Jesse's the one that did it right.
Jesse got
Oh,
it,
okay.
and see, but no, I gotta get it too.
Princess.
I'm like,
Well, now there's 3 links of that one.
watch
You
this,
guys can
watch this,
continue.
watch this. Boom! I got it too.
All right. All right. You win.
And I was last, and whoever's last is first.
That's right. So to be your worst, and you'll get first. No, that's not a good policy.
Yep. And the first time I was wrong, and whoever's wrong is right.
Yeah. Okay.
Reminds me of an old movie. I don't remember. I think it was Arsenio Hall was an actor in this movie, and he was playing this is like a Southern Baptist minister guy, and he had all the accents and
Oh
everything.
yeah.
He's like, you see, I love the Lord, and if loving the Lord is wrong, then I don't want to be right.
That's right. I've never seen the movie, but I've definitely heard that line.
Yeah, it's great. So anyway, I digress. Rack Attack. Ah,
Ah, look at all those airplanes. They're all fighter jets, you see? They're all taking off. They're all going off in that one direction towards
yeah,
Princess Yellow. Uh-oh,
towards
Princess Yellow, watch out. There's a lot of planes coming your way. Anyways, thank
uh,
you all once again for joining us on this adventure of Don't um, Be Anything Less Than Fantastic Friday.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a good one.
and we appreciate everything that you guys do in the chat, or even those who are just listening. We appreciate you guys so much. We hope that something that we've said could be helpful to you someday. Uh,
Mhm.
and that, of course, absolutely, we don't lead you in the wrong direction. So if anything we've said seems wrong or off to you, you've misunderstood us because we are 100% correct. No, I'm just kidding. You make your choices, and we hope you just make them wisely.
But for the
Yeah.
lawyers,
Yes, we are not a substitute.
We are not professional therapists, attorneys, police officers, teachers,
Or camels.
anything like that, camels, whatever, all of that stuff. And anything we say or do is not a substitute for professional counseling, and anything we say or do cannot be used against us in a court of law because we have the proper legal disclaimer.
Whoa. Snap. Own that, lawyer.
We just want to be your friend. And we just want to help in any way we can. And
our intentions are good.
Yes, and we hope that anything we can share is impactful to you guys in the right direction.
Yes, and we love you.
Encouraging and uplifting to you. So yeah, and Jesse is our illustrious producer.
Oh yeah, Joe, do you have the word of the day today, or do you know
the word from our sponsor is Bear Moose Canoe Paddle. Yeah, that's it.
I like it.
Because that's my new backdrop for today.
So I'm wondering, I see that, but I'm wondering, is bear as in like without clothing?
No.
So it's a bear moose canoe?
Bears up there. Bears at the top.
I was going to say, my original thing I was going to say is that's...
And then canoe.
That's
and then
visually...
Bear Moose Canoe Paddle.
That for some reason, that reminds me of your background.
But pretty much a moose is generally bear.
Yeah, what's between the moose and the bear? Is that
they don't wear clothing?
Wait, what?
Because moose do not wear clothing.
I thought they were wearing clothing.
Those are just like little symbols.
Oh, so bear symbol, moose symbol, paddle symbol. No, canoe symbol, paddle symbol.
It does sound like an animal from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Bear Moose Canoe Paddle. That's like, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I might change my name to that.
Hello, my name is Bear Moose Canoe Paddle.
Bear Moose Canoe Paddle. You can just call me Bear Moo.
Bear Moo. I like that.
Bear Moo.
CDVNL, also known as Bear Moo, also known as Turkish Taco House.
Turkish Taco House.
Yes, I love that one. I'm glad you went with CDVNL, but there were a lot of names that could have been.
Oh my gosh. We weren't
sure we could call you. And we ended up on just going to Jesse and being like, okay, create a program. My brother's idea is brilliant. Create a program that just randomly spits out letters, and then that's what it came out with. CDVNL. And we're like,
yeah. But I wished I'd have known Princess Yellow because I could have been Princess Joe.
Ooh. That's something to live up to. It's a hard role to play.
It is. It's
a pretty high status.
I have a hard time with being a princess.
Yeah. It takes a lot to be a princess.
It does. There's, oh my goodness.
So many things.
So much that
so many things. Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Especially if you're going to be as incredible as Princess Yellow.
Oh my goodness.
You're going to try to even live up to a fraction of what she is in all of her beauty and incredibleness. It's going to be a tough road.
There is no other princess like Princess Yellow. And we may call you Ren? Like Ren and Lin?
Yeah, like that. Exactly.
Or like Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, no, not. See, Ren and Stimpy is an American cartoon, not that kind of Ren. Ren as in the Japanese Ren, I assume. Princess Yellow, or it would be weird if you called her Yellow, but she would probably still respond.
Mm-hmm.
You call her by a real name, but I won't tell you what it is. You'd have to ask her and then get the okay of using that name in public. So I wouldn't count on that one. Maybe just call her P for short, but that might get confusing because then people they'll probably think you're talking to the P, which is me, which is funny. Okay, so one time I had a friend who told me they met somebody who knew of Static P. And so she was singing the song, like It's Not Like I Like You or something in school, and she was walking, and then someone stopped her and was like, oh my gosh, I know that song. That's, and they're like, yeah, I actually know the guy who wrote it. And he said, wait, you know the P? And I was like, yes, that's the best name I've ever been called. I am.
You know the P, baby.
You know the P? And she started laughing because it's like, that's what you call him? You don't call him Static, you call him the P? So, I appreciated that. I don't mind getting called the P. I am the P, apparently.
You are the P.
Mm-hmm.
The P, right there.
Yeah. If you wanna you get what's the word? Be a little bit more honorable with your phrasing. You can call me Mr. the P.
Mr. the P.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mr. the P, sir, if you please.
But yes, it's like the Japanese name, Ren.
Okay.
I am the P. All right. Well, anyways, this is dragging on. I am sorry, guys. You guys are awesome.
But it's okay. Yes.
And bye-bye.
Bye. You guys are amazing. Thanks. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Yep. See you then. Hi. I mean, bye. What? Stop it.
Whoa!
You can see how long we have to sit here and wave?
I know.
We lay for like the